I didn't argue when my son's wife looked at me and said, "We don't need her help." She said it softly, almost politely. My son agreed, not because he meant to hurt me, but because he truly believed I had nothing to give. They thought I was living on a small pension, just enough to survive. I didn't correct them. I kept stirring the coffee. I kept my eyes down. I kept my voice calm. What I never told them was where their comfort really came from. And as I stayed quiet, I began to understand something painful. When people think you're powerless, they stop being careful with their words. This isn't a story about money. It's about what happens when a mother becomes invisible and what silence reveals little by little. My name is Eleanor Rose Patterson. I'm 73 years old, and I've lived in the same house on Maple Street for 42 years. The house isn't much to look at from the outside. The porch paint has faded to a dull gray. The mailbox leans left like it's tired. My kitchen curtains are the same floral print I sewed back in 1989, and the linoleum floor has seen better days. To anyone driving past, I'm just another elderly woman living alone in a house that's seen decades come and go. And that's exactly what my son Daniel believed about me. Daniel is my only child. He's 46 years old now, tall like his father was, with the same brown eyes that crinkle at the corners when he smiles. He married a woman named Ashley 8 years ago. She's 39, polished in a way I never was. She works in marketing for a tech company downtown. She wears blazers and heels and carries her laptop in an expensive leather bag. Her hair is always perfect. Her nails are always done. She speaks in that quick, confident way that successful people do, like every word has been calculated for maximum impact. I tried to like Ashley when Daniel first brought her home. I really did. I baked my apple pie. I asked her questions about her work. I smiled and nodded and tried to make her feel welcome. But there was something in the way she looked around my house that first visit, her eyes taking in the worn furniture and the old photographs on the walls. Not with meanness exactly, but with a kind of distant assessment. Like she was cataloging everything and finding it all a bit sad. They live in Riverside Estates, about 20 minutes from my house. It's one of those newer developments with big houses and manicured lawns and HOA rules about what color you can paint your shutters. Their house is beautiful, I'll give them that. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, granite countertops, and a backyard with a swing set for my granddaughter. Everything is decorated in grays and whites and those pale blues that are so popular now. It always smells like vanilla candles and fresh laundry. My granddaughter Lily is 7 years old. She has Daniel's brown eyes and Ashley's blonde hair. She's a quiet child, thoughtful. She likes to draw pictures of animals and trees. She'll sit at my kitchen table for an hour, completely absorbed in her coloring books, her tongue sticking out just a little bit as she concentrates. Those visits with Lily are what I looked forward to most. But over the past couple of years, the visits became less frequent. Daniel would call and say they were busy. Ashley had a work deadline. Lily had soccer practice. They'd come by for an hour on a Sunday afternoon, and Ashley would spend half that time on her phone. Daniel would seem distracted, checking his watch. I started to feel like I was an obligation on their calendar. Something to check off. Visit mom, done. The phone calls got shorter too. Daniel would call every couple of weeks, but the conversations felt hollow. He'd ask how I was doing. I'd say fine. He'd tell me about work. I'd listen. Then he'd say he had to go, and we'd hang up. There was never time to really talk. Never time to dig deeper. I became background noise in his life. The little old lady in the house on Maple Street. Still alive. Still managing. Nothing to worry about. And maybe that was partly my fault. I never asked for more. I never demanded their time or their attention. I just accepted whatever they were willing to give. Because that's what mothers do, right? We adapt. We make ourselves smaller to fit into our children's lives. It was a Sunday afternoon in late October when everything changed. The leaves were turning, and there was that crisp smell in the air that makes you think about wool sweaters and hot cider. I was in the kitchen making soup when Daniel called. His voice sounded strained, tight around the edges. "Mom," he said, "can Ashley and I come by this afternoon? We need to talk to you about something." My heart did a little jump. Those words, "We need to talk." They're never good words. I said, "Of course, sweetheart. I'll put on some coffee." They arrived around 2 o'clock. Lily came in first, running up to hug me. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and childhood. I held her tight for just a moment longer than usual. Daniel kissed my cheek. Ashley smiled and said hello, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. There was something formal about the way she held herself, like she was preparing for a business meeting. We sat in the living room. I poured coffee into my old china cups, the ones with the tiny roses that my mother gave me 40 years ago. The afternoon light came through the window in soft gold stripes, making the dust motes dance in the air. Everything looked peaceful, but I could feel the tension humming underneath. Daniel cleared his throat. He glanced at Ashley, and she gave him a small nod. Then he looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in a long time. Worry. Real worry. "Mom," he said, "we need to talk about our financial situation. Things have been harder than we've let on." I set my coffee cup down carefully on the table. I folded my hands in my lap. I waited. He continued, "Ashley's company had layoffs last spring. She wasn't let go, but her hours got cut way back. She's been freelancing, picking up contract work where she can, but it's not steady. And with the mortgage, Lily's school tuition, the car payments, everything, it's been really tight. Tighter than we thought it would be." I watched him speak. I saw the way his shoulders hunched forward slightly, the way he couldn't quite meet my eyes. My boy, my son, sitting there feeling like he'd failed somehow. Ashley leaned forward. Her voice was gentle, carefully modulated. "Eleanor, we're not asking you for anything. We just wanted to be honest with you about where we're at. We wanted you to know because we might need to make some changes. Big changes. We're thinking about selling the house, maybe moving to something smaller, or taking Lily out of private school." I nodded slowly. I said, "I'm sorry you're going through this. That sounds really stressful." Daniel ran his hand through his hair. "We've been trying to figure it out on our own. We looked into getting a loan, but our credit isn't great right now. We thought about asking for help, but..." He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. That's when Ashley said it. She looked directly at me, her blue eyes sincere and kind. "We don't need her help," she said. "We know you're on a fixed income, Eleanor. We know you've worked hard your whole life and you're managing on your pension. We would never put that kind of pressure on you." She said it like she was protecting me, like she was being thoughtful and considerate. But what I heard underneath those words was something else entirely. She was saying I couldn't help even if I wanted to, that I was small and limited and powerless, that I had nothing to offer. Daniel nodded in agreement. "Mom, you've done enough. You raised me. You worked 2 jobs after Dad died to put me through college. You've earned the right to just rest now, to live your life without worrying about us. We'll figure this out." I smiled. I think I even said something like, "I know you will. You're both so capable." Inside, though, something was shifting. Something cold and clear was settling into place. They had no idea. No idea at all. I poured more coffee. I passed around the cookies I'd baked that morning. I asked Lily about school and what she wanted to be for Halloween. We talked about ordinary things while that extraordinary moment hung in the air between us. And the whole time, I was thinking about my husband Robert and the secrets he taught me to keep. After they left, I sat in my rocking chair by the window. The sun moved across the floor. The house made its familiar settling sounds. I thought about Robert and about everything that happened after he died. Robert passed away 27 years ago when Daniel was only 19. It was sudden and brutal. A heart attack in his office at work. He was 48 years old, too young, too vital, too present in our lives to just be gone. One morning he kissed me goodbye and went to work. By afternoon, I got a call from his secretary saying they'd taken him to the hospital. By evening, he was gone. The grief nearly destroyed me. I remember standing in our bedroom the night after the funeral, looking at his clothes still hanging in the closet and thinking I couldn't possibly survive this. How do you go on when half of yourself has been torn away? But I had Daniel. He was grieving too, devastated, barely holding himself together. And I realized I couldn't fall apart. I had to be strong enough for both of us. So I pushed my grief down deep and focused on what needed to be done. Robert had been a civil engineer, quiet and methodical in everything he did. He didn't talk much about money. That wasn't how men of his generation operated. But I knew he was careful. I knew he thought about the future. What I didn't know, what I discovered in the weeks after his death, was just how careful he'd been. When I met with his lawyer and his financial advisor, I learned things that shocked me. Robert had been investing steadily for years. Small amounts at first, but growing over time. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds. He'd bought a rental property 15 years before he died, a duplex across town that brought in steady income. He had life insurance policies I didn't even know existed. When everything was added up, when all the accounts were revealed, I realized we had been wealthy. Not millionaire wealthy, but comfortable. Very comfortable. There was enough money to pay off our house entirely. Enough to put Daniel through 4 years of college without a single loan. Enough to live on for the rest of my life without ever worrying about bills. Enough to invest and watch grow even more. I remember sitting in the lawyer's office, staring at the numbers on the papers in front of me, and feeling dizzy. All those years we'd lived modestly, carefully, never splurging on anything unnecessary, and all along we could have done so much more. But then I understood. Robert had been protecting us. He'd been building a foundation so solid that even his death couldn't shake it. He'd been thinking decades ahead, making sure his family would be safe no matter what happened. The lawyer asked me what I wanted to do with the money. I thought about it for a long time. Then I said, I want to keep living the way we've been living. I don't want anything to change. He looked at me like I was crazy, but I was firm. I didn't want a bigger house or a fancy car. I didn't want to suddenly start spending money on things I'd never cared about before. I wanted to honor Robert's memory by being as careful and as wise as he had been. And I didn't tell Daniel. He was 19, still in college, still figuring out who he was. I didn't want money to change him. I didn't want him to feel like he didn't have to work hard or make his own way. So I told him there was some life insurance and a small pension. I told him I'd be okay. And he believed me because why wouldn't he? Over the years, I helped him quietly. When he needed books for a class, I'd send him money and say I'd been saving up. When his car broke down in his senior year, I bought him a used Toyota and said I'd gotten a good deal from a friend. After he graduated and was struggling to pay rent in his first apartment, I'd slip him $200 or $300 here and there, always saying it was just a little extra I had. He never questioned it. He just accepted it gratefully and moved on. And I never corrected his assumptions. I let him believe I was getting by on modest means, being careful, stretching every dollar. When he got engaged to Ashley, I gave them $5,000 as a wedding gift. Ashley's eyes went wide. She thanked me profusely, but I could see her doing the math in her head, wondering if I'd just given them my entire savings. I saw her exchange a look with Daniel, a look that said, "We need to make sure your mom is okay." I could have told them the truth then, but something stopped me. Maybe I wanted to see who they'd be when they thought I had nothing. Maybe I was testing something I didn't fully understand yet. Or maybe I was just so used to the lie that it felt safer than the truth. Now, sitting in my quiet house on that October evening, I realized the test was over. And I had learned exactly what I needed to know. When people think you're powerless, they stop being careful. They stop seeing you as someone who matters. You become scenery. I wasn't angry. Anger is loud and hot and temporary. What I felt was colder than that, clearer. It was a quiet determination to stop pretending, to stop making myself small, to let the truth come out slowly and see what happened when it did. That night, I made a plan. I wasn't going to announce anything dramatically. I wasn't going to sit Daniel and Ashley down and reveal some big secret. That felt cruel, and I'm not a cruel person. Instead, I was going to stop hiding. I was going to start living like the woman I actually was. And I was going to let them figure it out on their own. The first opportunity came 2 weeks later. Lily's 8th birthday was coming up. Ashley mentioned casually during a phone call that they weren't planning anything big. Just cake at home, maybe a couple of friends over. Money was tight, she said. They were trying to be practical. I called Daniel the next day. "I want to take Lily shopping for her birthday," I said. "Just her and me? A grandmother-granddaughter day." He hesitated. "Mom, you don't have to do that." "I want to," I said firmly. "Let me spoil my granddaughter for her birthday." He agreed, though I could hear the reluctance in his voice. He was probably worried I'd spend money I couldn't afford to spend. I picked Lily up on a Saturday morning. She climbed into my old car with her little pink backpack and her gap-toothed smile. "Where are we going, Grandma?" "Wherever you want," I said. Her eyes lit up. We started at the bookstore. Lily loved to read, just like I did at her age. I told her to pick out any books she wanted. She looked at me uncertainly. "How many?" "As many as you want," I said. She picked 5 books, checking with me before each one, making sure it was really okay. I just smiled and kept adding them to our basket. At the register, the total came to $73. I handed over my credit card without blinking. Next, we went to the toy store. Lily wandered the aisles with wide eyes, touching things gently like she was afraid they might break. Then she saw it. A Victorian dollhouse, 3 stories tall, with real wooden furniture and tiny wallpaper. She stopped in front of it, transfixed. "That's beautiful," I said. She nodded, then looked at the price tag. $165. She stepped back quickly. "It's too much," she whispered. I knelt down next to her, my knees creaking a little. "Do you really like it?" "I love it," she breathed. "But Grandma, it's so expensive." I stood up. I signaled to a store employee. "We'll take this dollhouse, please." Lily's mouth fell open. "Grandma, no. It's too much." I touched her cheek gently. "Sweetheart, let me worry about what's too much. Today is your birthday, and I want you to have something special." We left the toy store with the dollhouse in a huge box that barely fit in my car. We went to the craft store next and got art supplies. Fancy markers, watercolor paints, sketch pads, everything Lily's fingers itched to touch. Then we went to the children's clothing store and I bought her a beautiful blue dress she'd been admiring, and new shoes to match, and a warm winter coat because hers was getting small. By the time we were done, I'd spent over $500. Lily sat in the passenger seat surrounded by bags, looking dazed and happy and a little bit guilty. "Grandma," she said quietly, "thank you. But did you spend too much money?" I reached over and squeezed her hand. "I spent exactly the right amount. Don't you worry about that." When I dropped her off at home, Ashley came out to help carry the bags. I watched her face as she saw package after package coming out of my car. Her expression shifted from surprise to concern to something else I couldn't quite read. "Eleanor," she said carefully, "this is incredibly generous. But really, you didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to," I said simply. Daniel came out and saw the dollhouse. His eyebrows shot up. Mom, this is way too much." "It's her birthday," I said. "I'm her grandmother. I'm allowed to spoil her." Ashley's smile was strained. "We just want to make sure you're not stretching yourself financially. We know things are tight for you." I looked at her directly. "Things are fine for me. But thank you for your concern." I left before they could say anything else. In my rearview mirror, I saw them standing in the driveway, looking at each other, clearly confused. Over the next few weeks, I could feel them watching me more carefully. Daniel called more often, asking casual questions about my finances. Was I doing okay? Did I need anything? Was I managing all right? I kept my answers simple. Yes, no, yes. Thanksgiving came. They invited me to their house, as they did every year. I brought wine. Expensive wine. A bottle of French Bordeaux that cost $85. I'd done my research. I knew what I was doing. Daniel noticed immediately. He picked up the bottle, read the label, and looked at me with confusion. "Mom, where did you get this?" "The wine shop downtown," I said casually. "The owner recommended it." Ashley was in the kitchen. I saw her glance at the bottle, then at me. Something was clicking into place in her mind. She was starting to realize that the numbers weren't adding up. At dinner, they talked about their financial situation. They were trying to refinance the house to lower their monthly payment. They'd met with the bank, but it wasn't going well. Their debt-to-income ratio was too high. They might not qualify. I listened. I ate my turkey. I complimented Ashley's cooking. I didn't offer money. I didn't offer solutions. I just listened and nodded sympathetically. Later, when I was helping clear dishes, Ashley cornered me in the kitchen. She leaned against the counter, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "Eleanor," she said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course," I said, rinsing a plate. "Where did you really get that wine?" I looked at her. "I told you." "The wine shop? That's an $85 bottle, is it?" I said mildly. Yes, it is. Her voice was sharper now. And the dollhouse for Lily was over $160. And you spent hundreds on her birthday. And I'm starting to wonder if you're dipping into savings or something, because none of this adds up. I dried my hands on a dish towel. I took my time. Then I said, Ashley, I appreciate your concern, but my finances are my business. Her jaw tightened. Daniel worries about you. He doesn't need to, I said. Then help me understand. Because right now, it looks like you're spending money you don't have, and that's concerning. I met her eyes. I kept my voice calm and steady. What if I do have it? She blinked. What? What if I do have money? What if I've always had money, and you just assumed I didn't? The kitchen went very quiet. I could hear the dishwasher humming. Voices from the dining room. A car passing outside. Ashley stared at me. What are you saying? I'm saying that assumptions can be wrong, I said. And maybe it's time to stop making them. I walked out of the kitchen before she could respond. That night, I knew things were going to change. I'd planted a seed of doubt. Now I just had to wait and see what grew from it. 3 days later, Daniel showed up at my house unannounced. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept well. He sat down at my kitchen table and said, Mom, we need to talk. I poured him coffee. I sat down across from him. I waited. Ashley told me about your conversation at Thanksgiving, he said. And I've been thinking about some things. The wine, Lily's birthday. The way you've been spending lately. And I realized I don't actually know anything about your financial situation. I've just been assuming. So I'm asking you directly. Mom, what's really going on? I took a sip of my coffee. I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, this person I loved more than anything in the world. And I decided to tell him the truth. Your father was very good with money, I said. Better than I ever realized while he was alive. When he died, I found out he'd been investing for years. He had life insurance policies. He owned property. He left us very comfortable. Daniel's face went pale. What do you mean, comfortable? I mean, we had money. Enough that I've never had to worry. Enough that I paid for your entire college education without loans. Enough that I paid off this house. Enough that I've been investing and growing it for 27 years. He stared at me. His mouth opened, but no words came out. I continued. I never told you because I didn't want it to change you. I wanted you to work hard and build your own life and not feel entitled to anything you didn't earn. And you did. You worked hard. You made something of yourself. I'm proud of you. But you let me believe you were barely getting by, he said, his voice rising. You let me think you were living on some tiny pension. I let you believe what you assumed, I said. I never lied to you, Daniel. That's the same thing as lying. He stood up, pacing the kitchen. All these years, I've been worried about you, thinking you were struggling, feeling guilty that I couldn't help you more. And you just let me think that? Yes, I said simply. Why? His voice cracked. Why would you do that? I stood up too. I walked over to him. I looked him in the eyes. Because I wanted to see who you'd be when you thought I had nothing. I wanted to know if you'd still show up. If you'd still care. Of course I'd still care. You're my mother. Then why did you stop seeing me? I asked quietly. Why did the visits get shorter? Why did the phone calls feel like obligations? Why did you and Ashley start treating me like I was just some old woman you had to check on? He stepped back like I'd slapped him. That's not fair, isn't it? I said, Daniel, I love you. But you stopped really seeing me. I became something to manage, something to feel guilty about. Not a person, not someone with her own life and her own thoughts. Just an elderly mother who needed to be tolerated. His eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I know you didn't, I said. But you did. We stood there in my kitchen, the morning light streaming through the window, and I watched my son struggle with everything I'd just told him. Finally, he said, "How much money are we talking about?" I told him. Not everything, but enough. I told him about the investments, the property, the careful management over nearly 3 decades. His face went through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, confusion, and then something else, hurt. "You've had all this, and you watched us struggle," he said. "You watched us stress about money. You heard Ashley talk about losing her job. You knew we were thinking about selling our house. And you said nothing." "I was waiting," I said. "For what?" "For you to ask," I said. "For you to see me as someone who could help. For you to stop assuming I was powerless." He sat back down heavily. He put his head in his hands. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything right now," I told him. "But I need you to understand something. I'm not a burden. I'm not someone to pity or manage. I'm your mother, and I have my own life and my own choices. And I'm tired of being invisible." He looked up at me. "You were never invisible to me, wasn't I?" I said gently. He couldn't answer that. After Daniel left, I knew the hardest conversation was still coming. Ashley. Because Ashley was the one who'd said, "We don't need her help." Ashley was the one who'd made me feel small. 2 days later, she called. Her voice was tight and controlled. "Eleanor, I think we should meet. Just the two of us." We met at a coffee shop downtown. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. She stood when she saw me, but she didn't smile. We sat down. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "Daniel told me everything. About the money. About your husband. About all of it." I nodded. "I figured he would. Why didn't you tell us?" Her voice was sharp now, the careful politeness gone. "Why did you let us sit there and talk about our problems like we were begging? Why did you make us feel like we were burdening you?" "I never said you were burdening me," I said calmly. "But you let us think it." She leaned forward. "You let us think you were this poor old woman living on nothing. You let us feel sorry for you. And the whole time you were sitting on all this money. Do you know how that makes me feel?" "How does it make you feel?" I asked. "Like an idiot," she said bitterly. "Like I was patronizing you. Like I was some kind of fool." "You weren't a fool," I said. "You were making assumptions. And that's what I wanted to see." Her eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" I set my coffee cup down carefully. "Ashley, do you remember what you said to me back in October? When you and Daniel came to tell me about your money troubles?" She frowned, thinking. "I said a lot of things." "You said, 'We don't need her help.' I let those words hang in the air. You said it right in front of me. Like I wasn't even there. Like I didn't matter." Her face flushed. "I was trying to be respectful. I didn't want you to feel pressured." "You made me feel invisible," I said. "You made me feel like I was nothing. Like I had nothing to offer." "And Daniel agreed with you. Not because he wanted to hurt me, but because he believed it. You both believed I was powerless." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "So this was some kind of test? You wanted to see how we'd treat you when we thought you had nothing?" "Not a test," I said. "An observation. I wanted to see the truth. And I did. That's manipulative, she said flatly. Maybe, I acknowledged. But it was also honest. I stopped pretending. I let you both see what you really thought of me. And what I saw was that I'd become background noise in my own son's life. Ashley looked away. Her jaw was tight. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I know, I said. But you did. So what now? She asked. You've made your point. You've shown us we were wrong about you. Do you want an apology? I want you to see me, I said. Not as a charity case. Not as someone to manage. Just as a person. As family. She looked at me then, really looked at me. And I saw something shift in her eyes. Not agreement, not yet, but recognition. She was starting to understand. This is going to take time, she said finally, for me to process all this. I know, I said. Take all the time you need. We finished our coffee in silence. When we left, she paused at the door. For what it's worth, she said, I am sorry. For making you feel invisible. That was never my intention. I know it wasn't, I said. But intentions don't always match impact. She nodded slowly. Then she left. The weeks that followed were strange and difficult. Daniel called me several times, his emotions swinging between anger and hurt and confusion. He felt betrayed, he said. He felt like he didn't know me anymore. I listened. I let him process. I didn't defend myself or argue. I just gave him space to feel what he was feeling. Ashley stayed distant. I didn't hear from her directly for almost a month. But I heard through Daniel that she was struggling with it. That she felt embarrassed and defensive and wasn't sure how to move forward. I understood that. I didn't push. I just waited. December came. Cold and gray. The holidays were approaching, and I wondered if they'd even want me there. Then, 2 weeks before Christmas, Daniel called. Mom, he said, can we try again? Can we start over? What does that mean? I asked. It means I'm sorry, he said, for making you feel invisible, for not seeing you, for taking you for granted. You were right. I stopped really being present in your life. I stopped asking questions. I stopped caring about anything except checking the box that said I'd visited my mom. And that's not okay. I felt my throat tighten. Thank you for saying that. I talked to Ashley, he continued. We both want to do better. We want to be real family, not just people who see each other on holidays. I'd like that, I said quietly. And Mom? His voice got softer. We do need help. We need help with a refinance. The bank turned us down. We're going to lose the house if we can't figure something out. And I'm asking you, not because I think you owe us anything, but because you're family and we need you. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. The moment they stopped assuming and started asking. Tell me what you need, I said. He explained everything. They needed a co-signer for the refinance. Someone with good credit and assets. Someone the bank would trust. Without it, they'd have to sell the house, uproot Lily, start over somewhere smaller. I thought about it for a day. I talked to my financial advisor. I looked at the numbers. And then I called Daniel back. I'll do it, I said. But I have conditions. Okay, he said carefully. I want to be part of your life. Really part of it. Not just visits when it's convenient. I want regular family dinners. I want phone calls that aren't rushed. I want to know my granddaughter, to be present in her life. I want to matter. You do matter, he said. Then show me, I said. That's my condition. Not money. Not control. Just presence. Deal, he said immediately. Mom, deal. I promise. And one more thing, I said. No more assumptions. About me or anyone else. If you have questions, ask them. If you need something, tell me. But don't decide what I can or can't do without talking to me first. I promise, he said again. 2 weeks later, we went to the bank together. I signed the paperwork as co-signer. Their refinance went through. Their monthly payment dropped by $700. It gave them breathing room. It gave them hope. On Christmas Eve, they invited me over for dinner. Just the four of us. Ashley answered the door, and for the first time in years, her smile looked genuine. Come in, she said. We're so glad you're here. We made dinner together. All of us in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, stirring pots, laughing at small jokes. Lily was in charge of setting the table, and she took her job very seriously, making sure every fork was perfectly aligned. After dinner, we sat in the living room. The Christmas tree lights glowed softly. Lily sat on my lap, her small warm weight familiar and precious. Daniel and Ashley sat together on the couch, and for the first time in a long time, everything felt right. Ashley cleared her throat. Eleanor, I want to say something. I looked at her. I was wrong, she said, about a lot of things. I made assumptions about you that weren't fair. I treated you like you were fragile when you're actually one of the strongest people I've ever met. And I'm sorry. I accept your apology, I said. I also want to thank you, she continued, for helping us, for the refinance, for being patient with us while we figured things out. You didn't have to do any of that. You're family, I said simply. That's what family does. Daniel reached over and took my hand. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The gesture said everything. That night, after I went home, I sat in my rocking chair and thought about everything that had happened. About the moment Ashley said, "We don't need her help." About the months of silence and observation. About the slow revelation of truth. About the pain and the anger and the eventual understanding. It hadn't been easy. There had been moments when I wondered if I was doing the right thing. Moments when I wanted to just tell them everything and end the charade. But I'm glad I didn't. Because what came out of it was something real. Something honest. They saw me now. Really saw me. Not as a burden or an obligation or a charity case, but as a person with my own power, my own choices, my own life. January came. The start of a new year. Daniel started calling me twice a week. Not out of obligation, but because he wanted to. We'd talk about everything and nothing. His work, my garden plans for spring, books we were reading. It felt easy. Natural. Ashley invited me to lunch once a month. Just the two of us. At first, it was awkward. We were still feeling our way through this new dynamic. But slowly, we found our rhythm. We talked about Lily, about work, about life. We weren't best friends, but we were building something real. And Lily, my sweet Lily, I started picking her up from school every Wednesday. We'd go to the park or the library or just sit on my porch. She told me about her friends and her teachers and her dreams. She asked me questions about my life, about her grandfather, about what it was like when I was young. One afternoon in February, she said, "Grandma, my friend Emma says her grandma is poor and can't afford toys. Is that true for you too?" I smiled. "No, sweetheart. I'm not poor." She looked relieved. "Good, because I like when you buy me things. But I like just being with you more." I hugged her tight. Me too, baby. Me too. In March, Daniel and Ashley invited me to be part of a new family tradition. Sunday dinners. Every other week, we'd rotate houses. Sometimes at theirs, sometimes at mine. We'd cook together, eat together, talk together. It wasn't fancy, just real. One Sunday at my house, we were all in the kitchen. Daniel was mashing potatoes. Ashley was making salad. Lily was drawing at the table. And I was pulling a roast out of the oven. Ashley looked around and said, "This feels good. This feels like family." Daniel nodded. "It does." And it did. It really did. Spring came. The trees budded. My garden started to wake up. I planted tomatoes and peppers and herbs. Lily helped me, her small hands carefully pressing seeds into the soil. One afternoon she said, "Grandma, are you happy?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. And I realized I was. Genuinely deeply happy. Not because of the money. Not because I'd proven a point. But because I was seen. Because I mattered. Because I was part of something real. "Yes, sweetheart," I said. "I'm very happy." She smiled, dirt on her nose. "Good, because I love you." "I love you too," I said. By summer, things had settled into a comfortable rhythm. We had our Sunday dinners, our Wednesday afternoons with Lily, our phone calls and random visits. Life felt full in a way it hadn't in years. One evening in July, Daniel came by alone. He sat at my kitchen table, and I could tell something was on his mind. "Mom," he said, "I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened. About how I treated you. About the assumptions I made. And I realize now that I stopped seeing you as a whole person. I just saw you as my mother, this fixed role, and I forgot that you're also Eleanor. A woman with her own life and her own story." I nodded, listening. "I want you to tell me about your life," he said. "Not just the parts that involve me, but everything. Your childhood, your marriage to Dad, what you've been doing all these years. I want to really know you." So I told him. We sat at that kitchen table for 3 hours, and I told him stories I'd never shared before. About growing up poor during the Depression. About meeting his father at a church dance. About the early years of our marriage when money was so tight we ate beans and rice for weeks. About the joy I felt when Daniel was born. About the terror of becoming a widow at 46. About learning to manage money and investments and property. About the lonely years after he moved out. About the quiet satisfaction of building a life on my own terms. He listened to everything. Really listened. And when I was done, he said, "You're amazing, Mom. I don't think I ever really understood that before." I smiled. "I'm just me. Nothing special." "That's not true," he said. "You're so much more than I ever gave you credit for." In August, Ashley did something that surprised me. She asked if I wanted to go with her to a work conference in Portland. She said she had to go anyway, and she thought it might be fun to have company. We could make a weekend of it. I said yes. We flew to Portland on a Friday morning. We walked around the city, tried new restaurants, went to Powell's bookstore, and spent 2 hours browsing. We talked about everything. Her childhood, her career, her fears about being a good mother, her relationship with Daniel. That night, sitting in our hotel room, she said, "Eleanor, I need to apologize again." "More deeply this time." "You already apologized," I said. "I know. But I don't think I really understood what I was apologizing for. I've been thinking about it for months. And I realize now that I was dismissive of you. Not just about the money, but about everything. I treated you like you were this elderly woman who didn't understand the modern world. Like your opinions didn't matter. Like you were just something from Daniel's past that we had to accommodate. I stayed quiet, letting her continue. My own grandmother was like that, she said. She lived in a nursing home and couldn't really take care of herself. And I think I just assumed all elderly people were like that, helpless, past their prime. And that was so incredibly wrong of me. We all make assumptions, I said gently. The important thing is recognizing them and changing. You're not past anything, she said. You're sharp and capable and honestly kind of intimidating. In a good way. And I'm sorry I didn't see that before. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. She smiled. Can we be friends? Real friends? I'd like that, I said. And we were. It wasn't instant, but over the months that followed, Ashley and I built something genuine. She'd call me for advice. We'd meet for coffee. She'd ask my opinion about work decisions or parenting challenges. I mattered to her now. Not as Daniel's mother, but as Eleanor. As a person she respected and valued. Fall came again. A full year since that October afternoon when everything changed. 1 year since Ashley said, "We don't need her help." We were all at my house for Sunday dinner. The leaves were turning gold and red outside the window. We'd just finished eating, and we were sitting around the table with coffee and pie. Lily said, "Grandma, tell us about Grandpa Robert." I smiled. I started telling stories. About how we met. How he proposed in the rain. How he used to sing off-key in the shower. How he made me laugh. How he made me feel safe. How he built a life for us that lasted beyond his death. Daniel listened with tears in his eyes. He said, "I wish I remembered him better. I was so young when he died." "He loved you so much," I said. "Everything he did, every investment, every careful decision was because he wanted to take care of us, even after he was gone." Ashley said, "He sounds like an amazing man." "He was," I said. "And he taught me to be strong, to be wise, to think ahead. Everything I am now is because of what he showed me." That night, after everyone left, I sat in my rocking chair. The house was quiet. The dishes were done, and I felt at peace. I thought about the journey of the past year, about the pain of being invisible, about the risk of revealing the truth, about the difficult conversations and the slow rebuilding of trust, about finding my way back to being seen. It hadn't been easy. There were moments of anger and hurt on all sides. Moments when I wondered if I'd made the right choice. But looking back now, I knew I had. Because the alternative was to keep pretending, to keep making myself small, to keep accepting whatever scraps of attention they threw my way. And I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't keep being invisible. Real power isn't loud. It's not about proving something or winning an argument. Real power is knowing who you are and refusing to diminish yourself for anyone. It's drawing boundaries. It's speaking truth. It's letting consequences unfold. I didn't do this for revenge. I didn't want to hurt my son or his wife. I just wanted to be seen. And in the process of making that happen, I gave them something valuable too. I gave them a chance to grow. To recognize their assumptions, to become better, more thoughtful people. Sometimes love means letting people face uncomfortable truths. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is stop protecting people from reality. My son thought I was living on a pension. His wife said they didn't need my help, and I let them believe it until they learned the difference between what they assumed and what was true. Now we have something real, something honest, something built on mutual respect instead of pity or obligation. I'm not invisible anymore. I'm Eleanor. I'm 73 years old. I'm a widow, a mother, a grandmother. I'm a woman with her own money, her own power, her own choices. I'm someone who matters. And every Sunday, when my family comes through that door, I see recognition in their eyes. They see me, really see me, not as someone to manage or pity, but as someone to value. That's all I ever wanted. In November, for Thanksgiving, we started a new tradition. Each person around the table said what they were grateful for. When it was Daniel's turn, he looked at me and said, "I'm grateful for my mom, for her strength, for her wisdom, for not giving up on us even when we didn't deserve it." Ashley said, "I'm grateful for second chances, and for learning that I don't know everything." Lily said, "I'm grateful for Grandma's house and her cookies and the way she listens to me." When it was my turn, I looked around the table at these three people I loved, and I said, "I'm grateful for truth, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because that's where real love lives." December came again, another Christmas, but this one felt different. There was a lightness to it, a joy that hadn't been there before. On Christmas morning, Lily gave me a present she'd made herself. It was a drawing of our family, all four of us holding hands. At the top, she'd written in careful letters, "My family who sees each other." I cried when I read it. Happy tears, grateful tears. That afternoon, after everyone had gone home, I sat by my Christmas tree. The lights twinkled softly in the darkening room. I thought about everything that had brought me to this moment. The years of quiet pretending, the moment of decision, the difficult path of revelation, the slow rebuilding of relationship. It had been worth it. Every hard conversation, every uncomfortable moment, every risk. It had been worth it to be seen. I'm 73 years old. I live alone in a house on Maple Street. To anyone passing by, I might look like just another elderly woman. But I'm so much more than that. I'm a woman who chose truth over comfort, who demanded to be seen, who rebuilt broken connections through honesty and courage. My son thought I was living on a pension. His wife thought they didn't need my help. And what they learned was that they'd been underestimating me all along. Not because of money. Money was never the point. The point was recognition, respect, being seen as a whole person with agency and power and choices. That's what I fought for. That's what I won. And now, in the quiet of my evening, I can say with certainty, I am not invisible. I am here. I am seen. I am valued. I am enough. And that, my dear friends, is my story. The story of how I stopped being invisible and found my way back to being seen. I hope it reminds you that you're never too old to stand up for yourself. You're never too small to demand respect. You're never powerless, even when people treat you that way. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. You matter. Don't let anyone make you invisible. Don't let anyone convince you that you're less than you are. Stand tall. Speak truth. Be seen. Because life is too short to spend it in the shadows. Well, now, I've kept you here quite a while, haven't I? Thank you for listening to this old woman's story. It means the world to me that you stuck around all the way to the end. If this story touched something in you, if it made you think or feel or remember someone in your own life, I'd be so grateful if you'd hit that like button. It helps other people find these stories, people who might need to hear them. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love to have you join this little community we're building. There are more stories waiting for you. Stories about life and family and the quiet courage it takes to keep showing up. Leave me a comment and tell me where you're listening from. Are you in Texas? Maine? California? Somewhere else entirely? I love knowing where all you folks are. It makes me feel like we're all sitting together, sharing stories over coffee. And if you feel moved to support this channel, there's a way to do that. But only if it feels right in your heart. No pressure at all. Just appreciation for you being here. Thank you, dear. Thank you for your time, your attention, your open heart. Take good care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. And remember, you are seen. You are valued. You matter. Now, go on and have yourself a beautiful day. Or night, wherever you are in this great big world. Much love to you.